Hello, everyone. This is the Revolutionary Think Tank podcast. If this is your first time here, this is a podcast about political commentary, protest music, and revolutionary thinking. My name is 4AS, and this is my co-host, Mr. E. So, Mr. E, how are you going today?
I am very well, 4IS. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. And you know what?
Mm-hmm.
Since there's a lot happening on the other side of the world,
Yeah.
Um, especially since some pretty big things have happened,
Yep.
whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans. I thought, you know, why don't we cover what's happening in America?
Yeah, look, it's
Because
not a bad point. It's not a bad point. We might as well go there. Some pretty extreme things have happened over just the last couple of weeks. Mainly, you're talking about the assassination attempt on Donald Trump, which is, it's pretty big news. Like at the time, 2 weeks ago, at the time of filming this anyway, 2 weeks ago, it was pretty outrageous. Like I really didn't
yeah,
see that coming. I know the Americans have a huge history of this type of stuff, and their general love of gun culture really leaves this as actually not something that's very unlikely. Like,
yeah.
people just have access to guns and like pretty sophisticated weaponry as well. Not just like, I don't know, basic, basic guns or whatever you want to call them. You can tell I'm not much of an expert when it comes to firearms. But like, yeah, they have pretty sophisticated weaponry and they have access to a lot of stuff. It's, just part of their market ideology, and their freedoms and their rights as Americans to be able to, walk down the street with semi-automatic weapons, and that be fully constitutional. And so, like, I guess, it's not that unlikely that you could have an event like this, right? Where you could have the assassination attempt of a former president and somebody who's
Hmm.
currently as part of the presidential race, but still shocking nonetheless.
Yeah, and I guess for any international viewers as well, just to kind of give context, because I guess here in Australia, really the last massacre, or at least gun incident that we had, was all the way back in 1996. Like I studied it in high school. It was
Yeah, and what was the end result there for us?
okay.
What
Yes.
happened
So
after that?
okay. So it was the Martin
Not that
Bryant
this is a mass
massacre.
shooting, but like,
Yeah. But like, it was the Martin Bryan incident, and it's a very famous Aussie comedian joke, Jim Jeffries joke of, yeah, we had a massive massacre at the time, and then the Conservative Prime Minister came in and said, no, that's it. No more guns for you Australians. We're just going to ban guns, and everyone here was like, oh yeah, all right, that makes sense. And yeah, you have to have guns on a register, and it's just like, I guess maybe I think it's Queensland has an active gun culture, but like that's rural Queensland.
I
But
think it's more
apart from
just
that,
rural
uh,
Australia generally.
yeah,
I wouldn't, yeah, just kind of put it down to one state or territory. I would say generally, if you've got a firearm, you're probably a regional resident in the country. They have it for controlling populations and stuff like that on properties, including pest control and
yeah,
just like a general culture of.
but I also, what I was alluding to is, I think there actually is stand your ground laws in Queensland.
Oh, right, okay.
But then again, I don't think that's anywhere else in
Mm.
Australia. But I
Yeah.
digress.
Yes.
After the 1996 incident, they're pretty much like guns. You didn't really find them that in many places here in Australia compared
Yeah,
to
I think they
like
had like a buyback scheme, and they
yes.
they bought a lot of weapons off people basically and just destroyed them, rounded them up and just destroyed them en masse. And so yes, there's not a big culture of gun use, and prevalence in Australia as opposed to somewhere like America. Now, Americans have their cultural ties to firearms for many reasons. Obviously, it dates back to their War of Independence. But
Second
like,
Amendment, right?
yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the Second Amendment. Yeah.
Yeah.
The right to bear arms, which is that
Yes.
awesome Family Guy joke where they're just like, no one could possibly misinterpret this, right?
Yeah, the
And
right to have bare arms on your
bear,
wall. How
yeah,
can
and
that
there's,
possibly be
yeah,
misconstrued?
and they have that, like, yeah, the trophy of bare
Yeah, yeah,
arms,
yeah,
like
yeah.
hanging off the wall. Yeah, how could anyone possibly misconstrue that? So yeah, that is obviously a result, I would say, this assassination attempt of the easy access to firearms in that country. But like, there is a lot of weird stuff going on there for us. And like, straight away after it happened, like the conspiracy theories were flying. Like before you could
Oh
even really
yeah.
get in like a word each way about like no one even knew who the shooter was that at this point. Like people didn't even know if they were apprehended or not, if they were alive or they were dead. And like people were like, oh my god, this is staged. Like
Yeah,
he had a razor blade and like he
yeah.
just cut himself and someone made a gun noise and then stuff started pouring out, like there was collateral damage, someone died in the background, someone seriously injured. Behind there was 7 shots that were fired. So like 4 or 5
Yeah.
of them from the shooter themselves, and a number of those return fire from officers and security personnel that were on hand at the time. But like,
Hmm.
the real question that was, I think, circulating and of the most importance, in the minutes and the hours afterwards was
Yeah.
who was the shooter and what was their motivation? Because like Trump survived, and if nothing else, this galvanized his supporter base and has made him look like the all-American hero now. Like it wasn't good enough that he was a celebrity and on, yeah, like reality TV shows and a kind of a cult figure already. Now he
Hmm.
has literally taken a bullet to the face for the American people. So right after this happened, I was pretty all out, like especially with Biden around, like
Yeah.
he was going to win hands down, like no question after that.
Yeah, because like I guess there's 2 points that I want to add is one, I guess a bit of a side note because yeah, I heard all the conspiracy theories that were coming out like straight afterwards, and especially like some that were left leaning about it being staged, and it was one of
Yeah,
those
yeah, yeah.
things where, a lot of lefties had criticized conservatives about the whole post-truth, I guess semantics as well as framing that I guess a lot of Trump supporters had done. And
Yeah.
when the whole talk about it being staged, and it's like, do you really think that innocent people fell on their sword just to stage stage this for Trump? Like it's one of those things where like I think there's too many moving parts for you to say that with
Yeah,
definitive.
yeah, I agree. And like, at the time we didn't know, like straight away we're talking about like
Yeah.
hours after this has happened, like you didn't even know that there was collateral damage. And so there,
Mm,
yes, there was a lot of crazy conspiracy theories flying around. And like a lot of them, like you're saying from the left, people saying that it was staged, and people that like, if the shoe was on the other foot, they would be like turning around and, heavily criticizing people for getting involved in conspiracy theories, etc.,
mm,
etc. But like I can understand why they would have thought that something like this could potentially have been staged. But like the more you looked at it afterwards, like,
yeah.
you know, unless this person, whoever this shooter was like the best marksman in the world, like still a pretty ballsy move from Trump to just be like hiring someone and just being like, hey, just get me in the cheek, all right? We cool? We cool, right? You can do this, yeah? It's because it's like, we're talking about like, like fractions of a centimeter to whatever it was, the left or right. And
Yeah.
like he's dead, like kind of thing. So like, you know, I don't know. I just
But
think it's way too risky
yeah,
to be like some type of staged kind of, what do they call it, false flag or
yeah,
conspiracy kind of thing going on there. Way too close of a call. It's not like he got shot in the ass or something like that,
mm,
or in the arm. Like this was way too close for comfort.
yeah. And I guess more to the point of the assassination attempt, which I think is very relevant to our conversation today, is real life following fiction, because really, art has already covered this in a presidential uh, race, if you will.
Oh, it's in a
Because
race?
yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yep. Yep.
So
Pray
House
do
of
tell.
Cards. Well, Kevin Spacey's House of Cards.
Yep.
He actually, yeah, a guy, somebody makes an attempt on his life, and he ends up winning the presidential race leading into the next election. Um, like I'll just go over in broad strokes, but like obviously it's House of Cards is supposed to be the nefarious version of West Wing, basically. And Kevin Spacey, who's originally the whip of the Democrats, but then he moves and shakes his way to being the president of the United States. And during this, he one of the one of the reporters and that sort of thing that he knows. Uh, Not only is he having sex with her behind his wife's back, but also he like pushes her in front of a train because she knows too much. And long story short, the boyfriend, he basically becomes Charlie from, you know, was it Always Sunny in Philadelphia, where he's got the red dots in everything. He's trying to connect it up, and then
Yeah.
eventually
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
the guy goes insane, and yeah, he makes an attempt on Kevin Spacey, aka Frank Underwood's life,
Mm-hmm.
and he does get properly injured, and his vice president has to take control, but then he does the full like Palpatine. Somebody has made an attempt on my life that has left me scarred, and I
Yeah.
am doing this for democracy. Like he basically does that full thing, and also like the whole point. Like one of the major things with House of Cards is Kevin Spacey's character Frank Underwood does the whole like Shakespearean aside all the time where he
Yeah.
talks to the
Yeah.
camera. And yeah, it's very Richard III, Machiavellian. He always manipulates his way into an advantage, and
Do you reckon Trump ever does that? Like
it's like
turns to like, camera B or something like that, and people are like, well, what is he doing? And he's just like, he starts narrating his life, and he's just like,
oh, but so he was
maybe a
like,
spot of Macca's on the private jet home today after being shot in the face. Like,
so he's like, no, you Christians, you're very great, you're very nice, you're
yeah,
nice people. And then he turns to us and says like, yes, I'm fooling these people, all of the people right here. But okay, jokes aside, like what happens in House of Cards is, yeah, he gets shot, he recovers, and he wins the next election,
yeah.
hands down, because he took a bullet for democracy.
He took a bullet. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I,
Like, this is the all-American like hero story now. Like, he might as well have served in World War II, Trump.
yeah.
Like, if you know what I mean. Like, and like single-handedly killed Adolf Hitler or something like that. Like, you know, I ended World War II with these hands, 4 IS.
To be honest, I really wouldn't put it past him. Like again, save my bad Trump impression again. I really wouldn't put it past him if, like, after that he's like, yeah, see, I got shot and I single-handedly prevented World War III. I talked to Xi Jinping. Very nice man. Very
very
nice.
nice, very nice,
Very nice.
very nice.
Like, I wouldn't put it past him saying
Yeah.
something ridiculous like that.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I got shot. My left flashed before my eyes. I went to China and I said, you know what, your Belt and Road Initiative, very nice. I thought it through. You know what? Let's avoid World War III. How about we do that?
How about we do that? Only president to have never started a new war. You know what? It's an interesting kind of analogy that you're using there. And like I must say, have you been practicing your Trump? Because that was really good, actually. I was
Oh,
quite
really?
impressed with that.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I was really impressed with that for you. So like, look, it's a good analogy in the sense that okay, like maybe we can use it as a predictor of how people respond at the polls to our all-American hero Trump, but this, Frank Underwood story that you're telling here is based on personal intrigue. And so
Yeah.
like he's killed someone's missus, and then like they've come back to seek vengeance. But like this guy, Thomas Matthew Crooks, what an enigma. Like straight away I heard like, leftist commentators just being like, oh my God, like what if we find out that it was a black trans woman who's a lesbian and a Muslim or something like that. Like, it's the end of like it's going to be civil war in America. It's going to be like left versus right. The nation will crumble, like kind of thing. But like it ended up being like this 20-year-old,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
basically a baby with a gun on a roof, registered Republican voter. What's that
Yeah.
about?
Yeah.
Apparently made some donation, $15 donation to some, I don't know, some political party or institution associated with the Democratic Party, not the Democratic Party itself. But you could really
Mm.
see what the information that was coming out from the FBI that was being then given to the mainstream media and then passed on to us lowly plebs. It was
Yeah.
really about painting a picture of some person who was quite neutral and had a foot in each camp, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Like there was no like, oh, he's definitely a Republican or he's definitely a Democrat. Like they got, a little bit of both just to keep us all kind of tantalized, I guess, or like staving off the civil war that was ensuing. And so like this person, yeah, what an enigma. What the hell were they doing? They are from
Mm.
Pennsylvania and their search history came out like a few days after kind of that, revelation about them being a registered Republican voter. Their search history was kind of like Donald Trump, Biden, and some other key political figures. I'm not too down with American politics, but some other political figures, some high ranking ones,
Mm.
and rallies in his locality. So,
Yeah.
like, again, trying to paint the picture of just some rogue psycho who was like, oh, any rally will do. It could have been Biden, could have been Trump, could have been anyone rallying in that part of Pennsylvania, and he would have rocked up and shot up the place or like tried to assassinate a political figure. And so again, really trying to paint a picture of like someone who's completely neutral in all of this. Oh, they weren't going directly after Trump. They could have gone after anyone. And the other thing that came out of their search history, again, I feel like it's just serving the mainstream media and this generally neutral narrative. But the other thing was, had also been searching like severe depression
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
and things like that. Oh, so people can be like, oh, well, he was obviously mentally deranged then. So like you can just blame it on the fact that this guy was mental, as opposed to having some form of, I don't know, deeper political incentive or motivation behind this. This is just a random act of violence for it.
Yeah, you could say that, but I kind of want to go back to your mention of civil war because really, look, maybe people are getting up in a stir after the January riots, but the thing though is right after this happened, like the assassination attempts, people were recorded. I don't know whether it was directly from the rally or whether it was interviews afterwards of his
Yeah.
supporters, but people have directly said, "Hey, if Trump doesn't win, we'll start a civil war."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
don't get me wrong, it could just be saber rattling by I don't know people in the media or that sort of thing, but like you don't just casually say that stuff.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, they're at a very particular point in history at the moment, the Americans, where like that is not like a passing comment. that is a threat. Like, as in, like,
Yeah.
oh, could be a civil war, ha ha ha. Like, that is like, no, if this doesn't go our way, like, we're going to basically lay siege to the other half of the nation or declare war on the other half of the nation,
Well,
like, kind of thing.
I
Yeah.
heard the person, and they
Yeah.
were. It's not like they were joking. It's not like they were being sarcastic. They were being extremely sincere.
Like, they
So
are a very warrior people, the Americans. Like, they believe in their legend, which is like the War of Independence, and like, the victoire of World War II, and like they're the world police, and they, spread democracy and freedom wherever they go. And so like they are it's a very warrior like people. And
yeah.
like, if they think that they are being wronged, and even if that is internally, they will go to war. Like, they've done it before. Like, a civil war is
Mm.
not like, it's not like it's like a relic from the past that everyone's forgotten about. They remind themselves of it all the time, like on a
Yeah.
yearly basis. And so like it's definitely something that is in there, like it's on their radar, isn't it?
Yes, and I guess more to your point as well, that what makes it interesting is, say it does go in that direction, uh, does internationally and like I guess globalization wise, does the BRICS nations, do they fill that void? Does suddenly the Belt and Road Initiative turn out to be like everyone wants to hop onto that train? Like, for example,
Well,
does suddenly Xi Jinping goes to Dan Andrews' successor here in Australia in Victoria, and it's like, hey, you know how your government stopped us from doing the Belt and Road Initiative in Victoria? But what do you think about it now? So
yeah,
yeah, like
yeah.
I'm being a bit facetious here, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, yeah. Look, I think like if we're really like thought experimenting this right now, and here on the Revolutionary Think Tank podcast,
Yeah.
um, it's going to have to be a pretty kind of large scale civil war to actually destabilize the US nation. Like, if it's anything more than just like another Capitol Hill riot times like 10, let's just say. And like they'll just consider it civil unrest. They'll send in their National Guard or their own military, and they'll just open fire on the people and just quell what will be then known as a rebellion or a large amount of civil unrest. But if you're talking about significant swathes of the population enough to destabilize it and throw it into actual war, then yes, that will basically rewrite the history books and geopolitics for the next, few hundred years, I would
Mm.
say. Because like if you destabilize the American power base in its home soil, and like that absorbs its military prowess, and then it has to use its military to kind of restabilize itself, or maybe its military is split along lines of loyalty. Because I know like the way that they're like very basically or on a very superficial level, their military is kind of on the side of the military industrial complex, which kind of makes sense, I guess you would
Mm.
say. Um, and that's in a different camp to kind of some of the more powerful financial, um, I guess you would call them capitalists. So there's kind of two camps in America. There's the large scale East Coast financial and oil tycoons, the old money and the
Yeah.
existing establishment, the original establishment. Yeah. And then there's the military industrial complex and like small scale capitalists and stuff like that. So like, you know, the military might not actually be too divided. They might actually pick a side, and like whoever gets the military will win that war. I'd say pretty decisively. But that would
Yeah.
rewrite politics internally for them, and like talking about the death of democracy and stuff like that. Like if you had a civil war, it wouldn't end up in being a republic again or something like that. You'd be looking at military dictatorship
Oh
of some
yeah.
sort. Yeah,
Which which would be a an interesting end to America. Let's put it that way. Basically, what I guess I'm alluding to is, for example, Operation Condor and like all the other CIA operations in order to destabilize other nations, especially in Latin America. So, look, it's you could almost say that it's poetic in a way, but like,
Poetic
hey,
just like poetic justice? Is that what you mean?
um,
Like
uh,
sweet, sweet revenge. Like,
yeah, I guess you could say from a certain perspective, it's probably poetic justice.
yeah, because like if you're talking about them ending in a military dictatorship of some sort and their empire crumbling to a certain point in order to kind of fall like for that to happen, and for all of that to fall into place, then yeah. But like, yeah, that would be a massive. There's not just for the Americans. Like that's a massive thing, like on a global scale. Like for a long time now, the Americans have yes, as much of this is it's a joke. It's based in reality. They have been the world police, and they have allowed global trade since like basically the end of World War II. And so if you take away their kind of coverage of the planet, like it will be a much more unstable place to scratch a living as a nation. And, you know, depending on where you sit geographically will determine your success economically and physically. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, if
Yeah.
you sit in the Asia region, if you sit in the European zone, if you sit in the North Atlantic zone, like, depending on where you're sitting, will dictate now. It's basically like, you know, 1984. Eurasia and South Asia versus, you know, the West or whatever the hell it is. Like,
Yeah.
these will be the new boundary lines. It'll just be a geographical divide because that's how the world has traditionally
Mm.
been divvied up
Mm.
prior to the influence, the all-reaching influence of the Americans since World War II. So, like, this
Well,
is a massive, massive concept you're talking about here,
well,
Farias.
yeah, because like, yeah, I guess the first thing I think of whenever I think of world police is, uh, you know, Maitreya, obviously the South Park creators with,
Yeah, Team America.
yeah, Team America,
Yeah, yeah.
but like, it's
America.
Look, I was more thinking America, fuck yeah. Look, that always pops into my head. But I guess more to what you were saying before with the world police thing is that they've got military bases like everywhere,
Yeah.
but that's because so they can very easily respond.
Yeah, but
But
it also lubricates world trade. And like, you know, like I'm not talking about aviation here. Like world trade is in like the world survives off massive, massive, like ridiculously sized you know, shipping containers and container ships that circulate world trade.
mm,
And like, if you don't have an American Navy or a naval power that's strong enough to defend the world's waterways, then like globalization and global economics as we know it will end quite abruptly. Like it's changing already because the Americans are
mm.
slowly withdrawing and changing their naval tactics. But like without them entirely, like there goes the whole global trade system for us. Like it's a delicate balance out there. Like COVID showed us all of that quite quite starkly. Like as soon as you take a few links out of the chain, like things just like things haven't recovered. Like it's still hard to get things. There's still delays and things that have happened, you know, in the heat of the moment that was COVID, and we're still lagging behind now. And like, you know, the Americans pulling out of the global system would be that like on steroids.
Yeah, but they were even saying, in terms of global trade, that it wasn't supposed to be until either this year or next year that trade actually was supposed to be going back to full capacity.
Mm.
Like it from COVID, and like this is, I
Yeah.
guess, we're talking about a a 4 to 5, even possibly
Yeah,
6 year period.
it's huge.
Like, yeah, it is crazy, and
It
I think
is.
I know which book you're referring to as well. Isn't it The End is Only the Beginning?
Yeah, Peter
Yeah,
Zion.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
Have you read it?
no, no, it is on my list, but you have
Okay.
talked to me about it before.
Yeah, yeah. It's very interesting. It's kind of like, I don't know, Das Kapital of the 21st century, if you just look at it in terms of global capitalism. Because like Marx and that were obviously only able to analyze things on a national scale. Like Lenin was looking at things like from an imperialist European centric view, but like this guy kind of analyzes how global trade works, like the dynamics and the mechanics of it. Um, yeah, very interestingly on a global scale. And
Mm,
like, if his theories and his suppositions are true about the way that the global system works, like it is on a knife's edge. And like, yes, taking the Americans out of the system would just like throw it into disarray. So your BRICS and stuff like that, whoever gets to form the most strongest allegiances economically and militarily will be the dominant powers in certain regions. The world won't be global anymore. That's all.
right.
That's all. And so, like, this is a far cry, though, from Trump's assassination. But how big is American politics where you can, like, go down that rabbit hole?
Well, yeah. I'm glad you've tried to segue it back because, like, yeah,
Like,
because
it's scary.
yeah, it's like I guess we've been used to a certain way of life since World War II, right?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
And
And I think we're at an important turning point in human history here. Like, where, like, the world isn't such a small place anymore. Like
mm,
there are a lot of countries that have industrialized and advanced, and like America kind of had the money and the um, advantage technologically and militarily for a long time. And now I'm not saying that they're not a superpower anymore, but like they are not leaps and bounds ahead of everybody else. And so
mm,
there's some humbling and some stabilizing around that, which unfortunately or fortunately, I don't know, means less stability for economics
yeah,
because you don't have one all powerful kind of hegemon that decides and dictates who gets to trade with who and who gets sanctioned.
yeah,
You know what I mean? So it'll be very, very interesting. It'll be more egalitarian, but like in terms of who gets to trade with who, but like, you just got to hope that you have good diplomats in that type of world for AS.
right. So you think whoever becomes foreign minister is going to be really key in
Yeah,
that
well,
world?
yes, as long as we don't have people like Scott Morrison, pissing people off for no reason, then yes, yes, I think diplomatic relations will be key in this post-American world that we're talking about. Now, there was one other thing that I wanted to touch on in terms of Trump's kind of assassination, and it's like in the vein of these kind of conspiracy theories that we were
Yeah.
discussing before, but of way more substance.
Okay.
Like this guy, Thomas Matthew Crooks,
Yeah.
was able to get on top of a building, like a roof,
Yeah.
and position himself 150 meters away from Donald Trump. And there were like no security forces and personnel around to do anything about it. Like this guy was like being filmed by members of the public, and they were like calling the cops and being like, there's somebody on the roof with a gun. I think you guys should check this out. It's just like, and like with all the
Yeah.
stuff that we've said about America, like it is quite plausible that someone would have just been like a local would have been like, oh no, that's just Gary. He likes to go and clean his roof with his rifle, like kind of thing. And that would be completely normal. But like it was obviously not normal because all of these people were just like, there's a guy on the roof over there with a gun and he's pointing it at the rally, like kind of thing. And like nothing happened. Like
Yeah.
no one responded to it. And like you have to ask the question, okay, this wasn't staged. He got shot in the face. So then the next logical conclusion is, or the next question to ask is, what the were these security personnel doing? What were the cops doing? Like, what the hell were these people up to? Like, how
Well,
the hell did they let this guy do that?
surely it wasn't gross negligence, right? Like,
Well, like, I hope it was. Like, do you know what I'm suggesting here? Like I said, let's go down the conspiracy theory vein, but like a much more plausible one. Like, what if the security forces were deliberately negligent?
right. So,
As in, like, they just didn't care. Or maybe someone was given the order just to be like, yeah, I've done the perimeter check, like, kind of thing. And, like, because, like, what I'm saying is, like, it's not just that, like, someone was negligent. Okay, they didn't scope this area out. Like, they were told by people and still nothing happened. Like, people were just like, there's a guy with a gun on the roof. You guys want to check that out, please? And, like, nothing happened. It wasn't like, oh, shit, how do we miss that? We better go over and check it out. Like, there was a
yeah.
long time between drinks in
Well,
terms of being told and then nothing happening in response to it. And then
uh,
Trump got shot. And
well,
someone died. Someone died in the crowd.
yeah, but I guess maybe the security detail and also the police themselves. Last time I checked, they weren't that well funded, right? So, yeah,
Oh, look, I don't
maybe
know,
this
man.
also, but maybe this also speaks to the starving the beast, right?
Yeah,
That
maybe it does. Or maybe, this is a ploy by the security agencies and the police to just be like, let's just take a relaxed approach. If anything happens, then we can ask for more funding. Yeah, maybe that was the long game. Who knows? Or maybe it was the establishment just being like, if we just turn a blind eye to this and someone takes a pot shot at him, like maybe they'll just get rid of the problem.
look, it's possible, but it's also one of those things where um, it's what I began the podcast with. Like, it's one of those kind of post-truth stuff that as soon as you start entertaining it, like,
But like this is way more plausible. Like
yeah,
he got shot in the face. Like I don't think he would have staged that.
or no.
Like I wouldn't have staged it if I was him. I would have been like, shoot me in the ass. Like just do it somewhere. There's a lot of tissue and it'll be nice and soft. Use a BB gun if you can. But like, this like if there were people that were reporting this and there were plenty of security personnel around, how did they not get on that sooner?
Yeah, I just don't have any answers for you.
Because like once
It's
the shots were fired, it was in like within like I don't know 30 seconds or something. They located him on the roof, and some other security personnel like popped him like straight away. Like if you listen to the one of the people that were witnessed it, they blew his head off, like kind of thing, and that happened like instantaneously. But like for like so many minutes before the shooting, like they were well aware that there was someone on a roof with a gun, and
mm,
like no one did anything about it. It's weird for IS. That's all I'm
yeah,
gonna say.
but I guess to kind of use a frame of reference, um, wasn't there a massive audit that happened here with the New South Wales Police after the Link Cafe scenario? Because
And
yeah, I guess what I'm trying to say is that if I remember correctly, there was a long response time with that kind of situation,
yeah,
and uh, yeah, like I think it did end up with the police being investigated as to what their processes are and everything.
right,
But
right.
yeah, you like it's. I guess it's a game of ifs, buts, and maybes.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like I'd like to think so, and I think it's probably very plausible that the New South Wales Police is much more funded than, say, was it in Philadelphia, the this rally, or
Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania? I think the New South Wales Police are probably much more well funded than uh, the
Well, like the
Pennsylvania.
thing is, it is also the security personnel. So it's
Yeah,
like their secret service, basically. So
right.
like I'd say that they are pretty well funded too. But like apparently, you know, him being a not the actual president at the moment, a former president, there was limitations on his security personnel, apparently. Like less funding. Basically what you're talking about,
Yeah,
actually. There was talk of that.
yeah. The fact that
Um,
he's a candidate rather than
yeah,
the
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 sitting
the
president. Yeah,
the, the sitting president. Yes.
yeah, which is interesting. But like like we've talked about already, with like so many gun crazy Americans, like come on,
Yeah.
like this is not just like some random. I don't know. This is not just some other country in the world where there's much tighter restrictions on that. And the best thing that someone could do was throw a kitchen knife at the president from 150 meters away. Like they
Yeah.
must be ready for this type of stuff. They must have been ready for this type of stuff. It's very strange indeed. And the other thing I wanted to talk about just really
Mm.
quickly, which is throwing a spanner in the works for a lot of kind of those predictions about what was going to unravel post him being shot, is like Biden stepping down.
Yes. Thank you. I was about to bring that up. That what your thoughts were of the fact that yeah, Biden stood down, and it looks like Kamala
Hmm.
Harris is going to be the successor.
It looks like it, yeah. Well, like apart from the fact that like Biden was literally John Paul II, in president form. So like the old Pope, and like you know how in South Park they make fun of the old Pope, and like every time they ask him, so he's like,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
like
Yeah.
kind of thing,
Yeah.
and he's
Yeah.
just like this senile old man who can't wipe his ass, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
apart from the fact that Joe Biden was absolutely ridiculous and looked like like if he gone off script, like God help you. And if even if he was scripted, he looked like he was going to have a stroke or something like that, so he could pass out in any moment. And like the fact that he was like making some pretty poor choices, like by calling the Zelensky Putin at the NATO conference, and it's like the whole point of NATO was to like block the Russians, and it's just like, what did you forget and invite the president of Russia to a NATO meeting? Like, anyway, apart from the fact that he was like, severely incompetent, like, and it was hilarious. Don't get
Yeah.
me wrong. Now that he's stepped down, like this does change the game. Like if he had stayed there, Trump wins hands down,
Oh yeah.
according to
100%.
me. But like now, if they get a woman in who's like Indian and Jamaican, and she has ovaries, so like that's pretty much what you need to go against Trump, right? You need something that's different to what Trump can offer, not just another old white dude. You need
Yes.
something different.
Yeah, like it definitely does make it interesting, and I forget exactly the tweet she did, but it was basically like, oh, I'm an ex DA. I've taken felons on before. Um, uh, I've dealt with people that are abusers before. Dealing with Trump is no different from what I've had to do in my past. Like I'm very heavily paraphrasing, but like she
Yeah,
did this tweet where she was like 100% scathing of Trump, and she
yeah,
just went on the attack. And it was one of those things where it's like, holy shit, if she does that throughout the entire race, then maybe she's in with the shot.
yeah,
But
yeah.
like she just takes the fight to him and just doesn't relent. But yeah, like it was definitely hands down if Biden stayed in. But definitely the game has changed with.
Game's changed massively.
But also there's something about Vance, Trump's
Yeah, he's vice
running mate.
president
Yeah, like
pick. Yeah.
yeah, because like now that Kamala Harris is in there, a lot of people are saying that Trump and all of that is spooked because he now has the wrong running mate. I don't know particularly know too much about that. Like I know um, Vance is he's no, it's not. It's not that he was an actuary, but isn't he an economist? Or I don't know too much about him. Have you read?
I'm not sure either. I just know that he's from like the Appalachia region, so he's like
Right,
working class as you can get, and like he's
right.
representative of like yeah that kind of Midwestern or like regional American kind of voice and voter. Like he's a rags to riches kind of story
Ah,
for good
right,
old Vance. Yeah, and he's young, and like I think people think he's good looking. So like he was a anti-establishment or anti-status quo pick for Trump because he was like youthful and kind of the next generation kind of thing. And so he
right.
was running on that ticket. Yeah.
So he's basically he's got the Albo vibe, does he? It's like like not exactly the same,
Kind of.
but like
Yeah, I
not
think.
not the same exactly, but
Yeah.
Albo's whole shtick is like I grew up in public housing and I'm just a
Yeah,
working
yeah,
class
yeah,
person
yeah.
like you. It's like he's kind of similar. That,
Yeah, I think Vance has got a bit of that.
oh,
I
okay,
think he
right,
does.
okay,
Yeah, he's like a Republican version of that. Like he's come up from, yeah, the working classes, let's say. He's not from the political establishment. How about that?
right, okay,
Yes. And like his wife is like Indian too or something like that. So he's kind of from an interracial marriage or that kind of
right.
thing. So like, he's edgy, eh? Eh? He's not your average Republican, eh? Eh? So like, yeah, there's a bit of that going on there. So like, I'm not sure about the talk about him not being the right choice now Kamala's in, or she's not in. But like, I think she's definitely got the support of the Democratic Party and the convention by the sounds of it.
Well,
And it's very,
wasn't there this whole thing that like just like that, like overnight, they raised the funds in order for her
yeah,
candidacy?
so the story goes, 250 million, so a quarter of $1 billion was donated. Basically, there was all these people waiting in the wings and they were just like, Biden's, Biden's bad. Like, we're not donating money. And so apparently that was the reason why he pulled out, or a big part of the reason,
Right,
was that basically the Democrats were losing money. They were losing
right.
money in the race. And so like literally like as soon as he dropped out, then like all these people that would usually donate to the party just basically started donating all of the money that they were withholding. And so, yeah, $250 million. Like if that's how much they can give to like, other rich people running and playing political games. Like, come on. Like, can't they just like wipe out hunger in America or solve poverty or something like that? Like, seriously, what are they doing? Like, come
Well,
on.
that's our economic elites for you.
Yeah, I know. It makes you sick, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Bastards. Anyway,
Okay, and with that, let's move on to the last segment, which is what's that synthwave art? For this one, it was
what is the prompt?
okay. The prompt is uh, Donald Trump standing tall above his assassinator, uh,
Oh,
taking on the political landscape. So
wow. So
I
that's Thomas Matthew Crooks.
no. I
That
think
little guy there in the back.
no. I think Thomas Matthew Crooks is the ash underneath Trump.
Oh my god. No, I thought he was standing on like a jacket or something like that. Yeah.
Nope,
So like,
that
oh
is
wow.
Ash.
Oh, so is that Vance then next to him?
Maybe I don't know. I don't
Yeah.
unless it's a random CIA person.
Yeah. Right.
But like, as soon as I saw that, I'm like, oh my god! It made the assassin into Ash.
Yeah, that's heavy. Standing over his assassin. Wow. Yeah. Look, it's quite a good image of Trump, isn't it?
Especially the hologram in the background.
Yeah, the hologram in the background's pretty crazy. There's some, I don't know, Big Brother shit going on there. Like, he's the head of Trump is watching over society or something like that. But like Trump himself is pretty accurate.
Okay,
Yeah, he's done pretty well.
please tell me that this hologram of Trump is um, Cyberpunk 2077, like the new Trump Towers, and like yeah, in like 2077, like
Yeah.
that's the new Trump Towers in American dystopia.
Yeah. You just walk into a massive head of Trump. Yeah, and he's like a cyborg or something like
It's
that.
like, come to Trump Towers. It's very nice time. You have very nice.
Very good for us. Great practice. Great practice. It's
Uh,
paid off, mate. It's paid off.
okay. I'm still not sure about it, but I'm glad you are stroking my ego. Thank you for that, Mister A.
I
Uh,
try.
and with that, everyone, remember to keep thinking and keep learning. And to close this out, I'll give it to you, Mister E.
Thank you very much for IS. And first of all, please remember if you like this episode, give it a like and hit that subscribe button for more action on the Revolutionary Think Tank podcast. And please remember, all of you out there, I am, you are, we are a mystery.